late in pregnancy, we see an increase in a disease called preeclampsia, which causes high blood pressure in women and proteinuria, protein in their urine. We see higher rates of that in the women on the SSRIs. At the time of delivery, for sure, we see higher rates of postpartum hemorrhage. There's higher rates of women bleeding who are on SSRIs in
because
pregnancy.
of the platelet thing you talked about with serotonin.
That's exactly right. That's right. And we've seen that for years in other areas of medicine. After surgery, the surgeons have reported on that, but now it's becoming clear in obstetrics. And postpartum hemorrhage is one of the leading causes of maternal morbidity and mortality. You want to make sure when you're delivering a baby that your coagulation system or your blood clotting system is functioning optimally. And as a surgeon, I myself am doing these surgeries. I was in the operating room the other night around 3 a.m. and when the patient's bleeding, you're really hoping that her coagulation system is functioning optimally.
Right.
And so this disrupts that, likely through its impact on platelets.
Yeah.
After delivery, what we see is for sure an increase in what's called newborn behavioral syndrome, or some people call it poor neonatal adaptation. The kids come out and they have trouble adjusting after birth. They're often agitated or irritable or restless. They'll have trouble feeding. They'll have jitteriness. They can have difficulty regulating their temperature, difficulty with feeding. The babies that come out after being exposed to SSRIs in utero definitely are showing an impact. And it's not a small percentage either, Allie. It's not. When the studies have looked at this, the studies quote rates as high as one textbook or one online textbook cites a rate as high as 85% for seeing some impact of the exposure to SSRIs during the pregnancy. So we see high rates of this, more likely to end up going into the NICU, more likely to have what's called a low APGAR score. The APGAR score is a way of assessing how the newborn's doing after birth. And babies that have been exposed to SSRIs in utero are more likely to have an APGAR at 5 minutes less than 7, which has been predictive of future problems. And that gets into the big area. Well, what are the future problems?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Long-term issues.
This is a great question. And again, harder to study in humans because of the difficulty with how are they being raised at that point? What other
There are
factors?
a lot of other factors,
Absolutely. But it looks like the offspring that are who are exposed to SSRIs prenatally have higher rates of depression, higher rates of anxiety. They have higher rates of neurobehavioral abnormalities, difficulties with motor skills. It depends on the study that's looked at it, but they've found difficulties in speech, delays, and autism is the one everyone asks about. Several animal studies, numerous animal studies of exposure in utero or exposure during development show that the mice and the rats have what they call autistic-like behaviors.
Wow.
We see this in terms of they're not socializing in the same way.
Interesting.
And so people have said, well, this could certainly be contributing. When you start talking autism, though, it gets very controversial and very murky because how that diagnosis is made, whether you're talking about just a personality difference versus profound autism, which is an IQ less than 50, lack of verbal skills, etc. You're talking about complexity in the diagnosis. But it looks like, without a doubt, from the reading of this literature, it looks like there's an impact for sure on the baby's developing brain that then shows up as they grow up. A study just came out, actually, in fact, last week. Zani is the lead author that looked at mice who were exposed during development and then how they responded, what their fear response was. So they had those mice exposed during development, and then as they grew up, they did a study where they exposed them to the stimulus is mountain lion urine, I think is what they use, because the scent of the mountain lion, who's their predator, and they can see that the ones that were exposed to SSRIs during pregnancy have a different fear response as they grow up. The same study was then done in humans, where they looked at humans who had been exposed to SSRIs during pregnancy, and then at age 11 to 13. So we're not talking newborn period. We're talking 11 to 13. They did MRIs on them, functional MRI, while showing them pictures to induce fear.
Huh.
And they
Sounds like a terrible study. It's really sad.
We shouldn't be scaring 11 to 13-year-olds that way, right? But they find a difference in the children or in the adolescents at that point who have been exposed to the SSRIs in
Like
utero.
less of a fear response? Is a suppressed fear response?
More of a fear response.
More,
They have
okay.
a heightened fear response, and
Wow.
they show higher rates of depression and anxiety.
Wow.
This just came out from Columbia University Medical Center, and it's just out now. And so
Yeah.
this is not the first study showing this kind of thing. I've been following this literature now, the scientific literature, for 20 plus years. And it's study after study is showing these effects on the developing fetus, in particular the developing fetal brain, of being exposed to SSRI antidepressants during pregnancy.
Yeah.
The one I get asked about all the time is, could there be an impact on sexual functioning? And this has absolutely been shown in the animal studies. So if you expose a mouse in development during the period that corresponds to third trimester human development, if you expose a mouse to an SSRI, a male mouse or male rat, and then you study their sexual behavior in adulthood, their sexual function in adulthood is significantly different than the mice or rats who weren't exposed to the SSRI during development.
So different how?
They do these studies where they will they'll expose them during development at an early time, and then look at them in adulthood. They present them to a female mouse or rat, and then they look for activity. They look for mounting.
Yeah.
They look for what they call intromission, and they look for ejaculation. And those rates are significantly different in the males that were exposed to SSRIs during development.
Like less or more, or just different?
They see less of that.
Okay, less of that. That's what I was trying to understand. So it could be that these SSRIs are affecting the sexual function or desire of, the future adults, like once they become adults. If they were exposed to SSRIs in utero, it is possible that will affect their sexual desire and function later on.
That's right.